All right, we are live with the 5th Collector Conversations episode. Welcome to the show, everybody. And of course, a big welcome to Carl Choi, first time on the show.
Carl.
Nice to have you, Carl.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you so much. Excited to hang out.
And Carl, you're based in LA, I think you said earlier when we were chatting.
Based in Los Angeles, and I've officially abandoned my D&D crew campaign tonight to join you guys. So,
that's commitment.
Wow. Yeah,
really?
I've had to work around a couple people's D&D campaigns to get them on the show because there's quite a few collectors that still play. So.
Yeah, they are fighting a couple of dragons tonight, so I might hop on right after this.
There's no limit to the geekery when it comes to this crew, Bill. You know how it is.
Keep going.
Absolutely. So we were just talking earlier. I actually had an art day. I'm gonna go. Can I do an art day? We've never done anything like that, but I always thought that might be something fun that when the collectors come on, that maybe we show off what we've picked up, during that week, regardless of who we've swapped in or not. So
this is supposed to be super regimented, Bill. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
You want to show us artwork?
Okay.
All right. Well, it's not scanned or anything. I really wasn't planning for this, but here I better take them out of the plastic because you know how those end up looking if we don't. First one is a Trimpy Godzilla page because I always like Godzilla.
Yeah.
And I really liked this top, the part where Godzilla's leaving. Just kind of a classic.
It is. Yeah.
And it's from issue 2. Yeah, I'm so much into YouTube episodes, right? So it's this is issue 2, and it is the end page. So I kind of liked, it's got
right on.
It's got Dum Dum in there, a couple panels, and the story. I don't know the story because I can't remember that book, but it's like the comment is the Americans are clever and resourceful. So. Very interesting. And this other piece I picked up was, I mentioned John Byrne earlier. So I picked up, this is from Fantastic Four 239. And I mentioned that I was going to be getting it, but that, it's got no FF on the page. But if anybody remembers Byrne's early, this is 236 was his first issue. So this is from 239, very early on. And I'll never probably be able to have a page with the FF on it. But I really like this because it's just very classic as far as Byrne style.
Is that at least Franklin, Bill, or
no? It's I think it's Native American. I'm not really sure. I have to go back and read the book. I hate to say it, but again, I bought it just because I was like, this is
nice blacks though. That's cool. I like the way it's laid out.
Yes, and then I'm going to show you one, and this could be like a topic. Well, it kind of was a topic last week, believe it or not, with Michael Lovitz. He was talking about faded inks and being a condition issue and whether or not you would want to pick up a piece of art. And I saw this and I still decided that I wanted to get it because of what it was. And it is a vintage Bill Sienkiewicz Magic, probably convention sketch. And it's done on kind of like construction paper. And I'm going to assume it was done in an off black ink, maybe kind of a brown, but the brown has started to fade, and so it's very hard to see, but you can kind of make it out. But I just was like, I'm never going to get a Sienkiewicz New Mutants page in my collecting experience. So
who is it, Bill?
It's Bill Sienkiewicz.
No. Who is the character?
Oh, the character is Magic.
Oh, that's Magic. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I know you can't make out the face very well, but you can see the sword, is on. Yeah. So. At any rate, I was like, you know what? I'll take it. It was, it was almost like it was kind of thrown into the deal, and I mean, who else is going to buy it?
It'll be easier to see once you post it in your gallery,
Oh yeah, no. When I scan it, I will definitely color correct it so that it helps the image pop a little bit more.
Yeah, with that last one, Bill, all 4 of our heads got bigger on the screen. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, I know. Whenever I'm interviewing somebody, I always forget to pull back when I'm showing the slide, so I'm always like this with myself looking at the artwork.
Jason, I don't know what you're talking about exactly, or what you think I'm going to talk about tonight, but what you think everybody wants me to talk about tonight? I'm a little bit lost on that, but whatever. I got my topic picked out already, so.
Right.
All right. Well, so we have a lot of interesting topics this evening, and I kind of looked over what they were, and I've actually selected George to go first tonight. So, George, do you mind taking us, getting this everything started?
Why not? I appreciate it, Bill. I'm glad to be back again. Hey, everybody in the chat. I wanted to pick a topic. It's something I don't hear too many collectors talk about, but wanted to think about something more along the lines of knowing what you're looking at. So I wanted to talk about the distinction between character designs, character studies, and character redesigns. I personally love this stuff. I think I've had an obsession since my Wizard magazine days, seeing Greg Capullo show you how to create a character, how to draw a character, design a character. So I always enjoy seeing it. I think probably like most collectors, you like to see the process, see where things came from. So this is one I see a lot of indiscrepancies in how things are labeled. And I don't think it's purposely, but maybe this will help clarify. And also, I'm open to discussing it too, because I haven't seen any like hard, fast rules on these things. But as far as character designs goes, I view that as a concept or design for a new, non-existing character. Where I see a character redesign is redesigning the outfit for an existing character. And a study is something I see a lot of artists do maybe before they're taking on a book and they're about to draw a character they've never drawn. So you'll see character studies as well. I also hear people say concept art. I consider a design maybe interchangeable with concept art, and maybe a redesign is a new concept or redesign for a character. But I don't know if anyone has other experience in how you're seeing the art presented or how it's labeled.
Well, that makes sense to me, George. I do mislabel it because I know you're such a stickler. So I know you follow my gallery. So yeah, I let the cat out of the bag there. But no, I'd concur. I did want to ask you, George, like before we kind of chimed in, you have an affinity for those type of pieces.
Yeah.
Right. So what is it about them? You know what I mean? Because they do show up on CAP here and there, but obviously they're in the minority if you're kind of categorizing pieces. But what do you dig about them?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I think, again, back to us being collectors, we want to preserve and save art. I find a lot of artists maybe don't see value in their designs. So I'm often surprised when I ask them if they have any designs or if they have the design that maybe Marvel used as a teaser or Image or someone used as a teaser. They're like, oh, I don't know if I still have that. May have thrown it away. But I absolutely love that stuff. I love seeing it. Not every artist does it or can do it or has a desire to do it. And I'm seeing more and more stuff today, design-wise, is done digitally, which in a weird way makes me appreciate the traditional designs that I see even more. I don't know, does anyone else collect that kind of stuff in this group or in the chat?
Not me. Are you referring to, George, like character designs, these sketches that may be done that the artist does up? For example, let's say they're starting a new series or whatever, or they're just reintroducing a new design to an existing character. And then they sort of, draw it up just to show the editor, okay, this is what I think, this is how I'm going to draw him for this series or whatever. Is that the kind of drawing you're referring to specifically?
Yeah, and I remember Mike Perkins did some great ones for Deathlock, I think, a redesign, that kind of stuff. And I see Tatiana as well. I mean, even like studies for a book they're about to do, I love seeing kind of their spin. But maybe even more redesigns. So like a new helmet for the character, a new costume for the character. I think anything in the creative process, I just love seeing.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too? I think Rob Rush, I think he has Ryan Stegman's just like first sketches for the Null character that's blown up recently in the and it's very unfinished, very rough, right? But I think it's just kind of neat to see this is what I was initially thinking, and this is what ended up right in the final design, and this is what ended up on the cutting room floor. So just that's a unique insight into the creative process of things. I have a Mcginnis one. He redesigned the Spider-Man Venom costume. You know what I'm talking about, George? And I asked him, I bought it directly from him, asked him about it, and I said, so like, what's the story behind this? Well, they asked me to go ahead and, changed the costume up a little bit for this story, gave me a little background, and he had the floating lenses. And I said, why did you do that? And he says this. He goes, I just offered that up because sometimes things are pretty thought through, and sometimes they're as simple as this seems to look cool, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we talked earlier about it being mostly digital. I have several friends that work in concept design, and they mostly work in digital. And sadly, they can't even like show people their work. But as I'm hearing you talk, George, I also think of this piece. I don't know which dealer it was, but it was a Joe Quesada character design. But I think it was meant for Ninjak, but then they ended up using it for Ronin.
Wow.
Which I thought was kind of cool because if you see the connection and how they look, Marvel's Ronin definitely took a piece of Ninjak's world.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool, and that makes sense too, Carl. Right? You can't show what's going to end up happening. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mcginnis does some great ones. I love seeing. He's really good about putting notes of like what parts of the costume, calling out the eyes or whatever it is. And I've commented on a lot of the ones mentioned in the chat as well, so I love seeing that.
Right. He designed the Superior Spider-Man costume when Doc Ock took over for Spider-Man. He designed the first iteration of that. I don't know where it is. I've never seen the art, but they like they do, right? They put it on a cover, like a variant cover, and you can see his notes, to your point, right? And why he did certain things, why he made it look a little meaner, aggressive.
I actually asked Mcginnis about that. I think it was at New York Comic Con, and I think Stegman has that he may have given it to Stegman because Stegman was doing the art on that run at the time.
George, what's interesting too is that stuff is not the clearest thing to price, right? Or to value as in terms of buying. So I think that's kind of interesting too, is like we all know what splashes and panels and covers are, but those are a little different, especially you're differentiating the types for us today, right? So even within that, there are different, I guess, price points you may or may not assign.
Oh, yeah.
George, just to be clear, for the people in the live chat, a couple of them have asked, are you also referring to like cover roughs, cover designs? And I'm assuming no.
Yeah, not specifically. Which those are great as well in their own regard. And I'm talking more about the
concept,
look of a character. Yeah.
Character looks, basically. Yeah.
George, what would you consider? Because we have a lot of official handbook of the Marvel universe, right? We say Ohatmu, I guess is how you want to pronounce it, but there are a lot of those on CAF, and they've got those 3-figure front, side, behind, and those aren't concepts, but they're kind of like model sheets, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to it, or I'd call that a model sheet.
Or a style guide. I mean, Chris Story had mentioned that as well.
Style guides. Yep.
Yeah, that would be what I'd consider. But they weren't really done for that reason, whereas style guides typically are done to give reference to other artists, specifically. And I think the Ohatmu, pieces were really more done for, I don't know, for merchandising and just, there were a lot of them certainly, but I don't think they were done as style guides for the artists as much as they were to put together those handbooks of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
But they're fantastic. I've owned several by Keith Pollard. I mean, I've got a Thor one in here somewhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that is different than what we're really talking about here with the character designs and the.
See that? Yeah, that's part of the conversation, right? I didn't differentiate it, so it's not as clear as a cover, panel, splash. Yeah.
No, I like what Tatiana said, that she said always trying to encourage her, her artists and artists that she knows to keep those types of things around because they're very collectible. And I know, George, you have a very interesting piece later on that you're going to show that is a character design.
Yeah.
And I mean, and an incredibly important one at that. And I think that I was half tempted to make you go second so we could show it. Along with your talk, but we'll show it a little bit later.
And it's one I wish I owned.
Who doesn't wish they own that one?
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have according to who is it here? You have a Stegman cable one that is bad ASS.
Yeah, I was lucky to pick up some from Stegman years ago, and I tried to get. he did a rough sketch that was on like a promo print for Scarlet Spider that was on like printer paper, and he just could never find it. So it may have gotten thrown out for all I know. But I love Stegman is always good for some original character designs, new character designs.
Well, George, that would have been dope because that is the book that I found his stuff on, and I got a lot of his
Love that.
stuff in the gallery. But that's the book. Yep,
that's awesome. Well, I appreciate it.
John Romita's first Wolverine design is so cool. I think we'd all agree.
Yeah. I agree.
Andrew, yeah.
But I want to say there was a Kitty Pryde, an original design that sold on HA in the past few years. I mean, there's been some pretty major ones. So it's interesting to see because back to the value, it's hard to price some of that stuff.
Yes.
And some of them you never know if the character goes nowhere and maybe only was in 5-10 issues. It may not be that valuable market-wise, but I still love seeing it.
Yeah,
yeah,
agree.
Yeah, I've seen. I know Berkey has a ton of John Romita character design sketches that because he was running all that, the whole department. So that that early on in Dueling Dealers, he had sold like that Kropotkin drawing that. I mean, nobody else would remember or care too much about that character except for Dave W. Right, who just has to have anything.
I remember.
Right. I mean, and so he's got. I mean, he probably has like 100 of those kinds of sketches, and like I know they're like the Shadowcat redesign. There's a couple different versions of that. I mean, they're really cool to look at, but they are hard to price though. If you're looking at that, what would you think that each of those pieces are worth? And it probably really boils down to that the character and whether it was just a costume change or if it was the first time that that the character was drawn on paper. Would help at least define the value for something like that. But they are tough because they are usually done on. They're not done on a normal piece of Bristol. In most cases, it's whatever they have laying around. It could just be an 8.5 by 11, regular sheet of print paper, or even on a ruled line paper. I've seen a few pieces done like that.
Although to be fair, that used to happen a lot more in the sort of like the 70s and earlier. I find the more recent last 20, 30 years, the artists, at least that I've seen, tend to do them on Bristol usually, or at least like an 8.5, 11 piece of paper rather than some torn up piece of scrap that they grabbed from the trash, like Romita often did, apparently.
And I've got some that have like grocery lists on the back or like.
Oh, really?
Pretty cool.
That's kind of cool. Actually,
I love it. It's all part of the charm to me. Like if there's a coffee cup stain in the corner. It's even more valuable to me. But I know that's not everybody.
And I agree with you guys. Like, I have a lot of experience buying and selling art. And even I have always struggled when I've had concept type sketches that I have an inventory to sell. I've always struggled with what the hell do I sit there literally sometimes half an hour trying to figure it out. Like what I'm staring at it, like what do I price this at?
Yeah.
And it's not easy. Yeah.
And Bill, to your point, it's a little clearer with established characters, right? Like they weren't established at the time, but they are now. I think Sean Rutan, you know Sean really well, right? I think he's got like a constrictor design. Bullseye. I think he has one of those, and they're on that crumply kind of paper. But man, how cool is that, right? Like super unique insight to the creative process that we never, for the most part, are part of or see. So,
and Tatiana, cool thank you for having your artists save that stuff. And I thought it was interesting. Felix did a chat a couple weeks ago with Daniel Warren Johnson, and they were doing claims and auctioning one piece for his Beta Ray Bill run. So they're like the original, his studies and some of the kind of redesign, his take on the character. The one that auctioned went very high, and then they had very reasonable prices on the ones that were just quick claims. So I love seeing that there's a demand for it, and I'm sure partially because it's Beta Ray Bill and Daniel Warren Johnson. But it was cool to see.
So George, how do you decide what to pay for a piece that's a character design piece?
I mean, but the majority of them that I've bought, either the artist or the rep had a price already. Ed Mcginnis was one that I happened to catch at New York Comic Con in 2013 that had a kind of a portfolio of stuff. And there was a group from Battle for the Atom, I think, and then some for another book. And I just tried to get kind of a package. And I think Khalil, this might lead into your topic a little later, but tried to get a group of art that I love Mcginnis' work. I love his bulky characters, and some that I thought were just cool designs. Like Star-Lord had cowboy boots and a big belt buckle, and I love that stuff. we basically worked.
You can stand up. You can stand up and show us your buckle right now, George, if you want.
I'm not wearing it.
Boots up.
Okay, I'll wear my bolo tie next time, though.
There you go. There you go.
Right,
so I think Rob's saying earlier that he's seen them anywhere from 100 to 5,000 for concepts, to the point around. Right? What's the range?
Yeah. Well, and some of them gone higher. Like some of those Byrne designs on Heritage, I think went higher. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult. Definitely, it's difficult because there's no comps for something like that. You really have to kind of go by your gut and what you think it's worth, and then you put it out there. Just like anybody trying to sell a piece of artwork, you just have to see. You always just hate when it gets snatched up right away because you priced it too low.
Well, there are comps, except it's just the problem is that the only other comps are other concept sketches that nobody knew how to price. So it doesn't help,
That's fair.
Right.
That's fair. That's part of the fun, right? I mean, there's an element of it not being so clear cut at times. It's frustrating, but on the other side can be kind of cool to figure out, the hunt.
Yeah. FYI, I mean, just to give you an idea real quick. The way I go about pricing, and I'm only referring to new ones. So let's say like Perkins, if he does something new, right? He just sent me a package of art, and it came, for those who don't know, he's doing Swamp Thing now. And it came with his 2 concept sketches for Levi Kamei, so the new host for Swamp Thing, who's of Indian origin. And the first villain, a new villain, if you want, who everybody suspects is going to be one of the new avatars for anybody who knows what Swamp Thing's all about. And so he sent those to me. And so basically what I would do is I don't know how to price it right now, but I kind of look at it and think, okay, well, it's a pre-first appearance for both characters. So I kind of take that into account a little bit, even though it's not published. So it's got to be more than what the equivalent sketch would be worth if he had just drawn it for somebody for the heck of it, right? Because it's still pre-first appearance kind of thing, and you just kind of figure it out that way and find some middle ground in between and go for it.
Well, and sometimes they're published leading up as kind of promotional art to tease people of the character coming. Sometimes they're published after the arc in the kind of extras in the hardcover or trade sometimes.
Yeah.
Even those things can maybe factor in.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I have to do a Google search of the one I was talking about earlier with Ninjak to Ronin. And, it's priced at $7K, but I haven't seen it for a long time, but the way it's laid out is really nice. It's almost like a pinup poster.
Wow.
So I can see why there's a bigger ask for it.
And it's Potato, right?
Yeah. And,
I feel like he's got a premium since he does a lot of work digitally.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
I'm seeing a couple. So subscribe, all that stuff. I imagine the folks that are on have done that already, but
at least subscribe.
I like Chris's comments.
Subscribe, reshare the link on Twitter, Instagram.
Yes. Thank you. I totally forget to do that all the time. If Nick Ferrucci's not here, I'm terrible.
And Chris is trying to outdo Jordan,
All right.
Birth page,
Exactly.
action page, pre-birth.
Yeah.
Yep. Just the twinkle in an artist's eye. So
let me go on Twitter real quick. Just get people.
And thanks for the folks in the chat as well, who are my fellow design collectors.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So shall we move on and look at some artwork?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. Carl, you get to lead us off this evening. It's like Fight Club. So you have to show some art. You get to be first today.
All right, let's do it. So let's see. How's this work? Do I have to share? You're sharing screen?
I'm going to pull the image up.
All right, pull it up. So, I initially set this up for as a follow-up to the topic I'll cover, which I'll share more later. But a man who has been a huge guidance and kind of counselor to my comic art collecting hobby has been Lambo Sheng, aka Lambo. And I personally believe, I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but I know everyone loves Trad's Silver Surfer Black. But I fell in love with a certain era of Trad's work. And to me, this is like one of the best covers that he's done. And it's just so dynamic, and you see so much movement and Batman in like a really powerful light. Yeah, I think when Bill asked me to select a couple of pages today, I just thought of the first two that came to mind. I didn't think too much about it, and it immediately went to this page.
Wow.
No, it's a beauty and unmistakably Trad.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he's changed a lot, but I feel like this, like personally, it was kind of like the evolution era that I kind of have my mind set on as what Trad represents to me. So
he baffles me. The stuff he does traditionally that you could do in minutes digitally, he's doing all by hand, is one of the things that always amazes me about his work.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does look like a Photoshop filter, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah, the swirl in the cow, like, man.
Yeah, exactly. To me, that's kind of what stands out is there's a nice energy to it. So it's coming right at you. The swirl and the cape is tight. And I don't know what it is, but I love that boot detail too. The bottom of the boots. Yeah. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, in images.
Very good choice.
The bat signal too. Like if you look kind of behind it, he's literally like running towards wherever the bat signal is being casted. And so I just felt like, man, it's such a powerful image of the bat.
I just noticed that back leg in there.
Look how small the foot is.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah,
not many people could pull this off.
Yeah. I'll be honest, guys, with Trad, right? I guess I'll say I don't like everything he does, but the stylization impresses me, and that some of the images just work with it. You know what I mean? Like that just, you kind of make your mark in terms. This is how I do art, and you hope it resonates with folks, and obviously it has. And then he's just the way he does what he does just stands out in some images. Some not so much to me, but others, I'm wowed.
And when I saw this, it kind of reminded me of a adolescent education video of a professor riding on a bike and describing how when you're driving by someone really fast, you see kind of like the waves in their visual is because of the light that gets factored when you're moving by fast. And I feel like Trad literally saw that moment and he captured it through what he does.
Now that you say that, I'm getting subconsciously Flash vibes. It's adding to the speed feel.
Yeah.
Very good first choice.
Yeah, so that was my first one.
All right, and here is your second one.
Yeah, second one is, honestly, like, nothing special outside of, like, obviously Barry Windsor Smith, and everyone knows this cover, but it was the second one that came to mind because everyone always talks about the one that got away, and I had a little story to share for this one, and this was the one that got away. And Dinesh obviously has, like, an amazing collection and really good taste, but I actually had first dibs on this piece. And it was funny because I think there's also a commercial for the want list on Premium Calf Gallery. I suggest everyone fill their want list out because this did come into my email. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I need to get this. I have this kind of thing where I actually just want to get one EWS piece. I want to get one Art Adams piece, like something that's memorable. But other than that, most of my collection is more modern art. And I messaged this guy right away who was selling it, and he literally he didn't respond right away. But when I had messaged him on my way to getting my COVID vaccine, and so I waited in line for an hour, and right before I was getting my vaccine, he calls me and said, "Hey, I'm about to get my vaccine. Can I call you back?" And so I called. So I got my vaccine, got poked, and they made me wait half an hour because I'm susceptible to allergies, and so I called them back right afterwards, and we got on the phone and we started negotiating, and it was I just wasn't all there, and I think if it was any other day, I would just be like, I'll take it, but I was just being extra, kind of conscious of the price and all that. But I think if I was in front of a computer and this was sitting in front of me, I would have just said, like, go for it. But yeah, it was just a beautiful page, and I think it had all the characters of the Valiant universe, which I love, all together. And the only one that beats this would be Unity 0, which is definitely would be on my grail list.
Cool.
For anyone who has it out there. But yeah, no. So that was it. This was the second page that came to mind.
Beautiful.
And unfortunate you didn't get to get it.
Well, Bill, as we know, time is not absolute. So you may get it at some point, Carl. I mean, it may work out.
Very true.
You never know. Yeah, for me, it's one of those things where at the time I was like, man, I'm kind of like, in a way, like penny pinching on negotiating. Maybe I didn't want that bad, but I think I just wasn't in my right mind at the time. I was just kind of like, in hindsight, the one that got away.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it happens. But just so everybody knows that we do have in the description over on YouTube the links to all the artwork that we're going to talk about tonight. So feel free during or after the show, if you want to check these out in better detail than we were able to show them here, please go check them out and take a look at everything else that these people have in their CAF galleries as well.
That's right.
All right, Khalil, you get to take us to our second topic of the evening.
All right, cool. I thought of this topic just earlier in the week because I was talking with another collector friend, and I realized I'd had these kind of chats, in recent years with folks. I'm not sure if I, word it this way, but the topic is navigating the quality versus quantity. So I think all of us as collectors, we kind of move along this and try to figure this out, assuming that there are limited funds we have. We know that there are our tastes generally as we move and progress in the hobby might get a little more expensive. And I know that they're not mutually exclusive terms, right? Meaning on one side, quality might mean you buy one piece a year and it's gonna take you to save up and trade and whatever else it is to get it versus buying 100 pieces at whatever price. So it's kind of where are you going to sit on that spectrum? And I have a couple of thoughts, but honestly, on this one, I wanted to get my fellow panelists one or two tenets, right? To me, at the end of the day, the answer obviously is to each his own. We all value things differently, and there's an element of just being of knowing where you are and where you want to get to. But are there any things that y'all, one or two, and obviously, and the folks on the chat too? I'm not sure if there's one or two things you might want to share when you think about this. When you've got priorities. For me, I know I like new art. So if I know I like new art and I want to be getting it here and there, what do I have to do to get that? Knowing that some of them got to be a little more on the, I guess, quality end, a little more pricey end. So yeah. Ruben, George, Carl, I thought I would ask you gents, if you had a couple thoughts on that.
Sure. I mean, early on, I was just like quantity, because I just was absorbing. And I had this big thing where I want to collect every Asian American artist I could find, and I literally probably have one of each from each Asian American artist. And so I had this whole list. But after a while, I was like, oh man, some of the stuff in front of me, I'm not sure I like, and I never read the book. And so as kind of time passed, I found myself actually gravitating to the newer art because I felt like I'm actually, I had a chance to meet a lot of Felix's artists, for example, and to me, it was almost, I'm investing in their future and growing with them. And they're actually really good people. So Jeff Shaw, Trav Moore, those two are two guys I really believe in and think, really, really love their work, especially the paybacks. I love the paybacks. Choi, Jeff has some of the best work to me personally. And so there's that. And then other than that, when it comes to older art, I actually feel like I need to now, if I was to buy an older art, I need to remember it as a moment in my life before I actually go for it. And so that's kind of been my two worlds, where if I love the art, if the new art comes in, it's if I love the art, if I love the artist, or if it's older art, it has to be a moment of nostalgia in my life.
Okay, so newer there's the investment side, right? You're growing with these guys, and then secondarily, you said if it's older, a moment in your life, so it had to resonate with you at some point, right? And I say that second one there, right? Because does the piece itself have to look great? And I'm not saying it's mutually exclusive, but we talk about this sometimes of like, oh, the piece is maybe it's okay, but it's from a book that I loved when I was 8 years old. So that's what it is for me. Is it either or? What's more important?
Yeah, I think now, because frankly, the cost of the older pages are just
that's right.
So I am trying to be extremely strict. Even for this Unity cover, the whole time I was negotiating, what was on my mind was Unity 0. And so I was like, oh man, like that's the one I fell in love with. But you know what? Do I just settle for this? And that's why I was kind of being a little bit more hesitant. But I think, it has to be that like the highest quality that I remember. And it has to be solid work that I love as well. And it should be replacing a piece on my wall, if anything.
Okay. I like that last statement. Yeah. It should be replacing a piece on your wall.
And Carl, do you mostly frame your work, or do you have portfolios and stuff on the wall as well? Obviously, you have stuff on the wall.
Yeah, I do. I do frame what I can, but I have portfolio. And then recently, I bought this flat filing cabinet. And it's been the best thing ever, because some of the stuff that doesn't fit in my portfolio, I get to put inside the flat file, and I get to pull it out, and there's a big space on top that you can like lay your art on and show friends and whatnot. But it's definitely I do have portfolios as well.
And I can jump in, Ruben. If
that's George, Ruben, yeah.
Go ahead.
I see like a lot of folks commenting. It probably all depends on opportunity. Especially when we're in times of conventions and you're at an artist table or with the rep and they've got all their portfolios there. I tend to buy what I can at the time, and sometimes buying more pieces, you can maybe get a package price or pick up more pieces, or maybe get something that an artist is on the fence about selling.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of depends, but to me, I love, and I saw Tatiana mention this and a couple other people with character specific, that I tend to buy artist specific things. So there are definitely artists that I would love to get a piece, like a Jim Lee and Art Adams, but I tend to go more what I have opportunity for, since those are much harder to get. And when they do come up, they tend to go, especially the past 6 months, way higher than I can afford. So I don't know, collective opportunity.
So George, there's opportunity there, right? So do you feel like, whether it's Jim Lee or whoever else, whatever you haven't checked the box on, is that all right? You don't feel like you're missing out? You know what I'm saying?
I came to piece years ago. If I never own a Jim Lee piece, I won't be that broken up about it. And I love Jim Lee and would love to own a Jim Lee piece. And not to pick on Jim Lee, I mentioned Art Adams, Magnolia is another one. There's just a couple that it's tough when you see a 5-figure price and think about all the pieces you could buy, other pieces you could buy. And they can be quality pieces.
There you go. Yeah. They're not mutually exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive terms.
Yeah.
Right? When you say quantity over quality, yeah, but it's there's a reason why I said there's a spectrum. Because it's not as if it's one or the other. But yeah, sorry, George. Yeah.
No problem.
So what's Jim Lee artwork are you looking for, George?
I mean, early on, I remember Albert Moy, and I'm kicking myself for not buying it 10 years ago. Albert it was a rare uncut Marvel card art page. Most of those got cut up into individual pieces. It was 3 Wolverine cards and a Punk Rock Storm card with the head sketches at the bottom. I think Albert was selling it 10 years ago for $5,000. And at that time, that was crazy money for me. Still is crazy money for me. But I'm, in hindsight, of course, I'm like, should have worked out time payments or something to get that one. But any Wolverine from Jim Lee would be amazing.
I've been there a few times with you, George, right? Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah.
But then I go back to what I did instead.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that worked out okay too,
Yep.
Yeah.
No regrets. No, that's I was just thinking when I was over at Mike's house today. I unearthed about 6 or 7 Jim Lee pages, and no, sadly, only one was a Marvel page though.
Okay.
And but it was one of those what the weird kind of drawn characters type thing. I don't think Wolverine was on that page though, but that's all. I was just thinking I could help you out. Do you solid tonight, George? I
appreciate it.
All the DC fans, don't take anything by Bill saying sadly there was only one Marvel page, right? It's he likes
Wildstorm. I don't know.
there was Wildstorm. Yes. There was, yeah.
I'm joking. I mean, Jim Lee, man. I mean, even this page was up on a Comic Link.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And I even got my wife's approval to go find the hardest I've ever gone, and I was just totally blown out of the water, so I wasn't even close.
That was the top-selling artwork, right? In Comic Link's auction. Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing a Comic Link recap tomorrow night, so that should be interesting. But I was going through the whole list of everything that's sold, and I knew that was going to go high, but I didn't think it was going to be the number one.
High. Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are the thoughts of the guy that actually has collector in his name? The Collector.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around long enough that my views on that whole topic of quality, quantity have sort of fluctuated and changed over time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And now, as a lot of people know, I mean, I used to be, focus more on quality if you can, but if you just kind of see that stack of portfolios right there?
Love it.
All right.
I do.
So that is all my Grommet collection.
Wow.
So you pretty much know where I stand at this point, I guess, you know. But not really. I mean, it's not as simple and cut and dried as go for quantity. You know, it's not like I have that because I want to get a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That just sort of happened because I decided to focus on him or his art about 5 years ago. And it just so happened that since that became my focus, that's pretty much all I was buying. And next thing you know, you're accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. I do want to say, though, that having it right there, a few feet away from me, it makes all the difference rather than putting it away in a closet or wherever people store their portfolios. I tend to pull off a portfolio off that stack regularly, like pretty much every week. And sometimes 2 or 3. Sometimes I'll spend 2 hours straight just looking through that stuff, and I'll flip through it constantly. So I can guarantee that, at least in my case, I get a lot of enjoyment out of my quantity.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of people, I would say like the majority of people who have like a lot of quantity, I feel like they don't really get the enjoyment that they could or should be getting out of each individual piece, just because they have so much of it and it's kind of all tucked away somewhere in a closet or on the floor, whatever the case may be, But that's just me. I believe ultimately what it comes down to is just buy it if you like it, right? And if you can afford to keep buying it in quantity, then so much the better. But with the caveat that you really got to focus. I really believe people have to start focusing more, because I've been guilty of this too. Focusing on being happy and getting enjoyment out of the pages you already have.
Here. Yeah.
Right. Instead of always focusing, as a lot of us get caught up in that whole, I got the piece. You got it in the mail, you sit down, you rip it open, you're like, woo, awesome. And you spend 5 minutes like salivating over it, right? And then you put it in your portfolio or a site or whatever, and then you're back online looking for the next piece. And you've already forgotten about that one. It's just a vicious circle, right? So I would just say that even if you're into buying a lot of the same thing or even different things, but if you're into quantity, it doesn't matter. But it matters if you're buying it and only tossing it aside quickly. I find it's you shouldn't really be doing that. Better to cut down on your quantity. You'll find yourself enjoying the smaller amount that would be left over a lot more,
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's it. But either way, as long as if you can afford it, and you, again, the key is get enjoyment out of it. You can keep getting enjoyment out of it. I don't think it really matters that you buy a lot or just very little, you know?
Yeah.
The key is making the effort to remember to enjoy the stuff you have and not always keep focusing on what can I get next? What can I get next? You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Word up. So we say the hunt is half the battle, right? And sometimes it ends up being 80, 90% of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, once you go through the hunt and once you actually get the kill, whatever you want to call it, that's half the fun, right? Like you said, you got it. So for me, guys, I would just say, you know, it evolves over the years. I try to be very present about what I want now and what I think I want to do in the future. So George, your point about opportunities is a big one, right? What can you do that will make you happy? I keep top of mind that they aren't mutually exclusive, but there's a happy kind of medium there. So there's no one answer for me, but I have a lot of Stegman pieces that I like, and I might move some, I might not. But there are other artists where you check the box and it feels great to do it. Ruben, it's awesome. I didn't this was going to happen, but you picked a page from an artist that that was my goal, was to check the box. And I'm pretty confident. You never say never, but I'm pretty confident that I got it. I'm happy. I love it. I look at it all the time, and I think I'm straight there. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Cool. Where are you at now, and where are you hoping to get? And I know your tastes, your thoughts around this change, but I think just kind of, you know, being self-aware when it comes to that is pretty important.
Yeah.
Khalil, I'll add. I mean, even talking about the quality not being exclusive with expensive.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of collectors. Jason Wood is one that comes to mind. That part of the quality is with commissions. You know, the interaction at a show, or even through email, being able to talk with the artist, think of an idea together in some cases, and come out with a piece at the end and have that shared experience with an artist that you love or read their books.
Yeah.
So I see people, especially some of the bigger conventions, Heroes Con is one that comes to mind, where they'll pick up quantity, but there's also a lot of quality there, where they'll maybe get 10, 15 pieces at a show. Sometimes they're head sketches, sometimes, you know, full figure sketches, whatever it is. But,
right.
So it's varying forms, to your point.
Well, George, I think you and maybe Travis, you've had Travis Ellisor on before, right, Bill? Who's pretty much an exclusive commission guy. But Travis has so many commissions from guys 4 to 5 years before they had a name in the comics industry, or before they blew up, right? James Herron, I can name tons of guys. And for him, I think, I don't want to speak for him, but that was kind of it, right? I find quality in these guys that aren't necessarily bigger names, but I recognize their talent, and they may or may not get to be a big name. But I mean, it was clear when I saw his video that he was very happy with what he ended up getting from those folks.
Well, excellent topic, Khalil. And as it turns out, I had picked Ruben to show off artwork next. So maybe we're going to take a look at this piece that you were just mentioning.
All right.
No, yeah, this is fantastic. I like the esoteric kind of concepts that we should be looking at and talking about with the hobby. It's not always cut and dry things. I think that there's a lot of visceral things that the ways we approach the hobby that are equally as important. And you know, clearly there was a lot of comments going on with regards to this topic. So no.
Well, Bill, for me, this kind of topic, like you said, esoteric. It's not. There's no right or wrong. There's no, you know, none of that. It's really, hopefully, folks just, you know, getting a little out of us talking about it. You know, we're not answering anything necessarily, but you know, you get some things in your head, and hopefully you can kind of reflect on, okay, he or she said that, I was thinking this anyway, and you know, maybe folks can get something out of it that way. It's really it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all right, Ruben. Yeah. So Ruben, now I'll see. I'll pick the first one here, and here you go.
Oh, what a shock! Tom Grubbin. Wow. Holy crap. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have much to say about it. It's actually a very simple cover. So this belongs in the collection of Jason Sylvester, J. Sly on calf. Yeah, look, everybody knows I love the artist. I really love, I just fell in love with the character of Superboy. At the time, it really, for me at least, it harkened back. The way he was written and treated was it harkened back to the early days of Ditko, Stanley, and Steve Ditko's Spidey. A very similar way of talking and insulting the people he was fighting in the middle of battle, all that whole shtick. I also loved the design, the character design. I know not a lot, but I know some people actually hate it. Even today, despite the very 90s aspect of it and look of it, I still really like the whole fade, the hairstyle, the one earring, the leather jacket. I just thought it was a cool design for the time, and I still think it looks pretty cool. And this particular cover, of course, it's from Adventures of Superman 501. Is that the number, I believe? And so first cover appearance of the character, and it's a very simple back shot of Connor Kent, but it sort of has that attitude. If anybody who is familiar with the character, who read him back in the early to mid 90s, is familiar. He just had an attitude to him, where he was kind of a bit braggadocious, and he was a bit of a badass, and he knew it, so he kind of showed it off. And it's it's a very simple piece, but it just sort of the whole thumb pointing to the back, saying, I'm part of the Superman family, whatever, I'm cool. Yeah, I just love it. It's just kind of very representational of who the character is,
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's fun.
This was my favorite of all the Supermans that came out after the death, and I really remember the impression that it left on me as well. So I agree, it was a great piece.
And Ruben, this is not in my wheelhouse, but two things that kind of stood out, right, is that you said at the beginning kind of a simple cover, and yes and no, right? I guess in one way it's kind of a close up, but in another, and I feel like with some artists there's that graphic design aspect. Sure, you love a lot of a crazy scene or a lot of rendering on a cover, but at the same time, I think just what's just as important with a cover is the impact and the feeling of. It's supposed to want to get you to pick up the book, and that's what this does. I think of Chris Samnee, a lot of his Daredevil covers. I don't think they've ever been for sale, but a lot of it just got a great graphic design element, though they may be a little simpler. But that stands out to me a lot with this one. And then two, right, the essence of the character, the attitude, the essence. I'm part of the Superman group, and if you didn't know before, now you know. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the whole gesture. That's
yep.
what yeah.
And Ruben, you mentioned the attitude. This feels like a rock and roll cover if there ever was one.
Yeah. Of course, the music reference had to come out, right, George?
That's right.
I love music, though, so that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, and here's your second artwork.
All right. Okay, so here we have this beautiful John Byrne page from Hulk through 19, from the collection of, I don't know, some guy. I can't remember what his name was, but I don't know. Some guy, I don't know. But it's Khalil for anybody who doesn't know. This is great. I don't know what to say. This came out at a time when, for me, the Hulk was my favorite character. I probably at this time had been reading and collecting for only probably 3-4 years. As with a lot of people back in those days, the mid 80s, John Byrne was, for most people, it was like the guy, the top artist at Marvel, almost everybody's favorite. And so, when it was announced that he was going on to take over, the Hulk, it was just, wow. It was like this dream come true for like a 15-year-old kid, Oh my God, that's going to be so incredible. And, of course, as we all know, he sadly only lasted 6 issues and a Marvel fanfare issue and left. But he left his mark despite the fact that it was so short. And it's just look at it. The top. Here's the thing. What I love about this particular page is that, for many years, having collected and dealt art, there was a time where when this stuff was not as worth as much as it is today, I would have looked at this page and I would have been like, oh, cool, but yeah, it's okay. Like it's a good half page, but not the other half, because the other half doesn't have Hulk or any costume characters. But over the years you learn to appreciate other things, and in this case, the fact that and of course I with this particular page, I actually appreciate what I'm about to say. I've appreciated it ever since it actually the comic hit the stands, and that was the fact that having read Hulk as my favorite book since I got into the hobby, the idea of Betty Banner, or I guess she wasn't. Well, this is right before the wedding. But yeah, the whole idea that her father, the general, as usual, never liked the milksop of a wannabe husband. The fact that he always gave him a hard time, it made me hate him. But it was like one of those characters you kind of love to hate. I loved it when he appeared, but only if like Bruce would get the best of him, kind of thing. And I just love the fact that on that bottom half of the page, at the wedding of all places, that Betty, who has been her, the entire sort of longevity of the character since her birth, essentially, who had been kind of the equivalent of Bruce Banner, right? The sort of a milksop, in her own way, who never stood up to her father. And here she is finally getting the guts at the wedding to basically rip him a new one. And it's too small for people to read it, unfortunately, but like she really lays into him here. And just the words, just those words, it's so powerful to me. Finally getting to hear that character say the things that I, as a reader, kept wishing she would say to her father, that I wished Bruce Banner would say to him, all those years. And finally she says it, and it's just so good. It's so good. So anybody who hasn't actually been to Khalil's gallery to see it, take a good, strong, close look at it and read those last 3 panels. It's really powerful writing. It's really great. And of course, there's nothing to say about the top half. It's clear why I love the top half, right? Mm-hmm. So, but go ahead and add to that if you want, anybody.
Yep. Beautiful page. I mean, I hate to admit that Byrne is an artist I think I slept on for a long time. I know he did some great work on the Wolverine, initial Wolverine arc after the Miller Claremont run. But I think I was so caught up in the Buscema stuff. But the more and more I see his stuff, the more I'm in awe of it. And I think if you look closely in that top right panel, you can see Slash playing the guitar solo from November Rain in front of the church. Not really. But those top panels are insane. I mean, I know, Ruben, you didn't even talk about it, but I'm going to mention it. Like, the storytelling there is great. The action there is great. Just an awesome page.
Yeah, congratulations, Khalil.
Cool. No, thanks, man. I'm going to say, guys, like, this is one of those lucky scenarios where at this point I'm wanting to get a Byrne page. I didn't need to fight with others about X-Men or Fantastic Four or Superman or any of that. When I think about Byrne, what I think about Hulk, and it's honestly, Carl, to your point, it's honestly the handful of books that I had at my disposal when I was a kid. I didn't have runs. I had books here and there. And I had like 3 from this arc, 317 being my favorite. And when I saw the opportunity to pick up one from this without having to necessarily break the bank relatively, I jumped at it. So thanks for featuring it, Ruben. Real happy with it. And it's the example of you never say never, but I'm good with Byrne. I'm good.
That's cool. I once owned 3 of the covers of the 6 covers.
Wow.
Dang.
and Khalil did point out you might own them again one day.
That's right. I can assure you I will not.
All right. Well, and I would point out that Byrne is the most collected artist on CAF by far. If you go over to like the comic artist database that we have underneath the resources menu, there are 5,448 artworks on CAF attributed to John Byrne. The next closest artist is George Perez at 4,817.
Cool.
I mean, he's got to be one of the most prolific artists, right?
That's
I feel
true.
He's worked
Right.
on so many
Right,
titles.
without question. I mean,
Everybody.
top of his game and so prolific for so many. Yeah. What can you say? Everybody needs a good example from John Byrne, whether it's a DC or a Marvel.
Well, there you go, Bill. Thanks for qualifying. Yeah. All right.
It's really telling that statistic, Bill. It's really telling, isn't it? You think about like back in the 80s, you go back 35 years, let's say 36 years to the mid 80s, when it was like the whole industry was Marvel, DC. Marvel always eating DC's lunch, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody knew it was Byrne and Perez, right? It was those two guys, and then everybody else came after pretty much. And all these years later, at least with art collectors, it's pretty amazing to think that all these decades later, almost 4 full decades later, it's Byrne and Perez in the same order, leading the popularity game.
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
That's pretty amazing.
And just for trivia, it's after them is, let's see, Gene Colan, John Buscema, Sal Buscema, Bob Layton, and Jack Kirby.
Wow.
I thought Bagley would be in the top 10.
Colan surprises me being ahead of the others. Not that he's there. Not that he's there, but ahead of the others. Yeah.
As far as collected works, right? Exactly. This is only, and it really relies on everybody assigning an artist to it, because I'm really only looking at that. If somebody doesn't assign an artist, but they just put the name in the title, I don't count that. I only count it when everybody's doing things the right way. But after 18 years, I'd like to think that even it averages out to be correct.
Yeah.
Right. Do things the right way, right, Bill? Is that the?
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but I would guess that the vast majority of CAF users do assign the artist.
Yeah. They do. Yeah. No, the vast majority do, but some people cut corners, and it does happen.
Yeah. So we can rely on that stat as being accurate enough.
Yeah. Agree.
So that's why I'm saying, like, wow, that's I think we're all shocked that Colan is third. Wow, that's
wow.
Yeah,
pretty interesting. Produced a lot of work too.
Yeah, for sure.
For up until his death, he was still working. So it's. I mean, I was a little bit surprised too, but I'd say he's probably been there. It's been entrenched with those three at the top. With Buscema, Buscema's right, or John Buscema's right next to Gene, probably by a couple, not even like 20 pages away, and they have almost 4,000 artworks apiece on the site. So very interesting.
Out of curiosity, did you happen to notice the name of the first sort of modern day artist, the most collected, let's say, guy from the last 30 years or 20 years or?
Well, like I mentioned, it was Bill Sienkiewicz, and then Jordan.
40, so.
Giordano, Ivan Rice, Mark Bagley, Adam Hughes,
Yvonne Hayden.
Let's see, just trying to see any more modern. No, everybody else is just down.
Dino's asking about Art Adams.
Where is Art Adams in that list? Well, the problem with that actually
doesn't have as much art. He doesn't have as much art out there.
Or available. Back to opportunity.
He doesn't have as much art.
Yeah, he hasn't produced enough to be up there.
Right. I'm just seeing, because I only list the top 50, and he is not in the top 50 of collected artworks. Again, that's
interesting.
Yeah. But is actually in one of the top 50 in views, though. So very popular to look at, but a little more difficult to own.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Cool.
Well, that was a long talk about artwork.
Right.
But that was good. Carl, you get to lead us off on a very important topic tonight. So, for our third topic this evening. So take it away.
Cool. So my topic is estate planning for a comic art collection. So honestly, I would have never thought of this. This is not something that would have crossed my mind until last year in August. My wife and I were both caught COVID, and it's crazy because it was one of those situations where, I've always been a pretty healthy guy, marathon runner, and literally ran half a marathon the week before I was diagnosed positive, and it hit me really hard. And thank God my wife is an ER nurse, and so she was sick, but she was a little ahead of me, about a week ahead. So as she was getting better, I was getting worse, and I even ended up in the hospital for a day. And I still remember it was 5 days into it. I thought I was getting better. And then I started getting back to work, messaging my team. And then I just fell asleep that night and didn't wake up till 3 days later, and literally just like my mind. And I remember when I woke up, I was like, oh man, like this could be real. Like this thing is hitting me so hard. I could imagine how this thing can actually take someone's life, because if I wasn't fighting it, and if I had any other issues with, heart disease or whatever else, like, it would have been a much harder fight. And so anyways, I got out of it. I recovered. And, one of the first things that crossed my mind as I got back onto, my database was like, holy crap, my wife would never know what to do about this. It would be just so overwhelming, and it'd be such a burden on her. And so, the first guy I called, Lambert, I mentioned earlier, who's been a huge advisor and someone that's been almost like a big bro, just kind of like guiding me through this whole thing. And, he broke it down for me, and it was really good. And I think one of the things I didn't do, even like before then, was insure the collection. So I'm not sure if you guys kind of insure the collection as well, but he pointed me towards the collect insure, which is like the collectible insurance. Yeah. So that was like number one, like have that covered. And then number two, database. And, for me, I like the Google Docs, the whole Excel sheet, because even though my wife do not give a crap about the collection, I shared it with her on their email, so that if anything was to happen to me, you could literally search the email for, my keywords, and then she'll be able to access that spreadsheet regardless, right? But then something I still haven't done yet, which I think I need to do, even though I've written as much description as ever, is also take photos. I actually remember listening to, I think, David Mandel's podcast on kind of like a movie collectabilias, and he says he takes photos of everything in his database. And I was like, oh my God, that was like such great discipline. And so I think I still need to do that. But in a weird way, recently I've been actually updating my CAF gallery and just like putting everything up there. And so I'll probably just send a link out there as well. So like that's a great one. Outside of that, and then secondly is who do I call? Because obviously I think, she might have the database, but like, what is she gonna do with it? You don't want her just sending that database out to some random dealer and then having them like, slang it for you. I think one of the actually like very key points that Lambert also shared with me is making sure you have very clear instructions on how you want this collection to be, to be sold. So like, as you kind of, don't ever, one of the things that says, do not fire sell everything. Take the time and make sure there's someone guiding you. And I have 3 phone numbers and 3 contacts that I have already spoken to in advance to say, hey, if anything happened to me, can my next of kin contact you? And would you mind, being, guidance to what happens to this collection? And hopefully it's someone you really trust and, has a share alignment in how they sell and let go of collections. And then also then it's like distribution of resources. After, it sells, what do you want to do with it? Is it going into a trust? Is it going to a bank account? I mean, you don't want to go to like someone who's obviously not ready for that. Are there certain pieces that could go to certain individuals that they'll love? Because for me, I already know, like there's a couple pieces in my collection where I know who those are going to go to. I mean, as a quick shout out, Jason S. I don't know if I met Jason yet, but he actually messaged me like a couple days ago and saw my big collection of Jeff Shaw's paybacks and said, I have a DPS. I'm gonna just send it to you. And he like shipped it to me. He's shipping it to me, and I guess it'll come in tomorrow. And he was like, yeah, you're the one that should have it. I was like, oh my God, I'm so touched. And so for me, it's like, there are pages in my collection that I know that certain friends in the collection world will appreciate, and so I'd rather just let it live on in their collection. And then.
Carl, sorry to interrupt. Just to be clear, sure. with that little anecdote, somebody you knew or you didn't know sent you this page?
I don't know Jason. Jason, I never met.
And he saw your art. He had some art from that book and said, "Well, you have that art, so you might as well own this one too."
Yeah. Best experience ever. I'm like, wow.
Nice.
What's his name again?
Jason. Yeah.
Okay, Jason S. Wait, I gotta go look at that gallery very soon.
So
maybe I collect something he does. Sorry, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
That's amazing. So much love, and like it shows like Bill, like what a great community you put together.
No, that's an amazing story. I can't say that I've ever heard anything like that before, but no, it's fantastic. But that's awesome. That just shows you that the people care, about their art. That's what you expect, that whole caretaker thing, that you want to make sure that you take care of the art and get it into the right hands. And I mean, that's what this whole topic is about.
Yeah, and then paying it forward. So that was big, the paying it forward. And then two more bullet points is if you are going to sell, there is taxation to think about. So, take the time to think about what that could look like for your next of kin. Because it could be, you don't want them to be hit with a massive tax bill. And so, being wise about how to coordinate those pieces would be really important. And then lastly, beyond, sending pieces that your friends will love, also, make sure to allocate some resources to take care of those who's advising you after you've passed. So I think, make sure to just put up very specific instructions to take care of the agents that would help you, help your loved ones move your collection as you've moved on. And so, obviously there's like case-by-case basis, but those are kind of like the bullet points that I have. So I actually have a physical copy of everything that I update on a regular basis, that my wife and I have our safe space, and then I would leave in there. I will update it over time. All the digital copies are shared to her email, so she knows what to share. And so, I think, ever since then, I've definitely felt a lot better about this collection, and knowing that, it'll be stewarded in a good way after I move, if anything was ever to happen to me. So that's kind of like my little game plan, and I could share with the community on estate planning.
That's amazing.
It's a great topic. That's a great topic, Carl.
Very important.
And totally agree with Chris, by the way. If Jason S. has a Jim Lee that he would like to send me.
Yeah, Jim Lee's a third guy too. I have Barry Windsor, Art Adams, and Jim Lee. I need one piece from each of them.
There you go. You gotta get that. You gotta get that in there, Carl. You're on with us tonight. You gotta get in your wants, man.
That's right.
Weave that in. But it's a great topic. I mean, it's weird, right? Like, you're just buying this stuff because you like it, and then all of a sudden you have stuff that's worth something, right? Like, then you got to think about what does that mean for me and for my children and the folks that are going to be around in case I'm not. So it's a great topic. And to pop Bill a little bit here, I was told on the insurance side that CAF is a record, right? So I've got scans. I use my Mustex scanner here. I load those on to Bill's site, and that is a record of what I got as well, right? So I just note that for your end, Bill.
No, that's and I can tell you that Maureen and I did talk about the whole CSV export in detail this past week, and I hope to have that completed and a part of your gallery report page so that you can download all your data into a CSV file whenever you need it. And I mean, I know that's like our number one priority now. The more these kind of conversations have happened, and yeah, CAF as a record can also be a bad thing. I can tell you how many people have contacted me that they're going through a divorce, and they're like, how do I shut my galleries off? I've got to hide all this stuff.
I didn't think about that.
At least I won't say once a month. At least every other month, I get an email about that.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Yeah. So there's that too.
That's a great topic, Carl.
I mean, on the estate side, is there anyone contact you? I mean, I can imagine. I mean, folks who haven't communicated to their spouses or their next of kin, like maybe don't even know like what to do with their collection. Like, have you ever had any interesting stories where someone just found like these family members' CAF gallery and was like, "What do I do with all this?"
No. I mean, recently I was contacted by the attorney representing the wife of someone who was going through this. And they explicitly told me not to turn anything off and to leave the record out there. So I just said, okay, when I'm contacted by an attorney, that's usually the route I have to follow their instructions to the letter. But other than that, no. I mean, really nothing anywhere near anything like that. I mean, I've had to turn off a few galleries from collectors who passed away, and their estates contacted me to let me know that because I can't keep track of every person in the hobby, but that usually happens at least once a year. and I'm always I'm always kind of surprised that I don't know about it or somebody didn't let me know about it, because in most cases it's a collector that was very prevalent out there, and it just I miss it, and no one thinks to let me know about it. I mean, Gene Colan's personal gallery is still on the CAF site. Wow. I'm so reluctant to turn it off, because it was him updating it. I mean, he and I had talked about it many times while he was putting art on his CAF gallery and selling art. And, I come across it once a month and I think, is this the time I should go in there and shut his gallery down? And I haven't done it, because I'm always reminded of the times I talked with him about it at shows and stuff. And so I imagine at some point somebody will contact me from the state or something and ask me to shut it down. But I just can't. I don't know.
I hope not.
Right. No, I'd rather keep it out there. I mean, it's.
Well, Bill, this got me thinking with the Collect and Share, is there a way to set up a CAF referral? Where you can get a discount and Bill gets some kind of kickback, and every time a person.
I wish it could work like that, but
it's a thing. Mark Maron does it with Staples.com.
I think so.
Right.
Tie it in so that your database is something that they can reference.
Right. I mean, I have that relationship with eBay, obviously, but I mean, is Collect Insure the same as? I mean, they used to. What was it? Collectibles Insurance Company was the one who always used to be at San Diego. Are they the same? Are they the same? Okay.
The same one. Yeah.
I mean, they used to advertise with me for years. I don't know. I think they went through some kind of management change about 8 years ago and needed to pull their ads, and then they never got back in touch with me, because you'd think that we would be someone that they'd want to work with. Not necessarily.
A huge miss.
Right.
You're the pipeline for people.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I should probably reach out to them and just see, hey, because I'm not aggressive with marketing and trying to get people to advertise with me, but they would be one that I think if they were smart, they would do that and contribute an article a month or something. Right. I mean, they're the ones who would really benefit from getting their information or that kind of information on Comic Art Fans. So,
well, and even having someone from Collect and Share do one of these and give even more info. Carl did a great job, but I'm sure there's things they could tell us that I wouldn't even know to think of.
All right, I'm writing it down. I'm going to reach out to them this week.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Carl, yeah, you're giving a lot of folks something to think about, right? I think so. Dino mentions Carl has thought out what 95% of collectors should do, but ignore. So let's think about that. And on a lighter note, Alfredo said, "Don't get divorced. Easy enough." And
right.
John C. Just on CAF, he's a big commenter, but he's a humorous commenter. He has some funny stuff. He said, "We'll freeze you in carbonite, and all will be fine."
Right. I'm sorry. I was not following the chat as well as I should.
No, that's okay.
I was so focused on Carl.
No worries.
I just emailed Jeannie over at the Collect Insure, Bill. So let's see what he says.
Okay.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah, Carl's on top of it. I love it.
Thank
and
you.
Dino, thank you for referring me down. Sounds better.
Let me close that deal for you.
I appreciate it.
The least I can do. The least I can do.
All right. Well, no, this was fantastic. I mean, it's something that it comes up a lot. Estate planning. I think that it's something that some auction houses help with that. I know that there are other entities out there that do, say they claim that they would be help with those sorts of things. But right, I mean, we've seen, like I just mentioned, I've seen collectors pass away in the 18 years that I've been running CAF, and I think it's a really important topic, because you always wonder how does that art get into the those eBay seller sites where somebody just dropped them off at the corner eBay shop and it ends up being auctioned off on eBay, and it's I guarantee it's because somebody didn't have any kind of written priority list of what to do with these things when they pass away, and it shouldn't work like that. You really need to have a better plan.
Yeah. And we're all here for a very short time in the context of things. And so in stewardship, we should really think about, who these pieces should belong to next. And for me, I'm 43. I never thought it would cross my mind till 20 years from now. But last year, really huge wake up call, big one. Yeah.
But isn't that the way things go for a lot of people, right? For most people, throughout my life, I can't tell you the amount of times I've spoken to friends, and I come from this from I guess maybe a different point of view, because my own parents are both deceased, and it's been like 12 years for my mom and 30 something for my dad, you know.
Wow. So
for me, it's always been, you know, ever since my dad passed and I was a teenager, it's not like don't get me wrong, I don't spend my days, every day, every waking moment thinking, oh my God, when is it going to be me? When is it going to be me? Right. But
right.
Their deaths, particularly my dad, since it was, you know, so long ago, it did make me realize just how quickly everything can be taken away from us, right? Mm-hmm. And it's shocking to me, you know, when I have friends who say things like, "Oh yeah, whatever, don't worry about whatever. You got another 25 years to live," and it's like, "Well, I'm 50 now, so I don't know that I got 25 years to live." And like, I'm not trying to be negative Nelly or anything, right? But I don't sort of look at things that way. I do look at things like, I don't know. It could be 5 years from now, for all I know. What do I know, right?
No.
But I'm shocked always at how many people I speak to that act as if, and I think it's a form of denial. I believe that's all it is, really, right? Most people don't have any level of comfort with death, right, or the topic of death. Mm-hmm. And especially, I guess this is what I really noticed, especially more so the people who still have both parents, right, and who have not really experienced a lot of death in their lives, especially them. It's amazing. And every time we sort of talk, we have these conversations about art and, you know, what are you going to do, you know, to prepare for your whenever you're gone, in case you go at some point unexpectedly. I'm amazed at how many people just sort of like, oh, what? Oh no, I'm going to be collecting at least another 20 years. And I'm you know, and sometimes I'm talking to guys who are like already 60 years old. You know, and it's like, what are you talking about? You could kick off tomorrow for all you know.
You never know.
No, but you know what I mean.
What is funny? We all think we live. It's like I always think of like Leonidas in 300 as may you live forever. And it's like one of the things that you're like, oh wow, like this guy lived as if he thought he was going to live forever. And, that's
cool.
Really
good topic.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I drink a glass of water for every beer that I drink, so it should be good.
I live by that same rule, George.
Yeah. An apple a day. An apple a day.
It's
Just want to point out Dino's comment that we all have superhero syndrome, immersed in a world where nobody dies. Well said.
Good comment.
Well said.
Great topic, though.
Yeah,
very.
Sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. And George, you get to show us some artworks.
Awesome.
One that ties back to your original topic as well, but that will be your second piece.
Okay. So I picked probably some odder ones, but things I love. This is from the collection of Brian Peck. He's got a great comic collection, but has one of my favorite music connected pieces as well. This is Gilbert Shelton of the fabulous furry Freak Brothers fame and other things. There's a TV show, animated show coming out for anyone that may not know. Woody Harrelson's in it, Tiffany Haddish, tons of other people. But this was actually done, I think, in the 70s, late 70s, for the Tribal Stomp 10th annual reunion show. I just love the design, the layout, the hand lettering, the Freak Brothers getting lost, wandering out, showing up on stage at the concert. Just thought it was a beautiful piece. Gilbert Shelton's another artist that I didn't find until later in my collecting. Would love to get a piece at some point. Although his pieces like this tend to go 5 figures, pretty high. But just loved it. Love the design. Love the feeling.
Yeah, this is typical art that rock stars love to look at. a lot of musicians love this kind of underground stuff. You know?
Yeah, there was just a great underground scene in San Francisco. I think around this time, with concert posters, with just culture in general.
Yeah,
that's what I thought of when I saw it too. That concert poster, kind of pin-up-y, right?
Yep.
Something to kind of catch your eye. That's what stood out to me. And you're not kidding about the music. George just posted a piece himself that's from a Prince comic, which is pretty awesome. It's by Dennis Cowan. So I'm going to pump you there, George. Y'all
I
check
appreciate it. And thanks to you and Ruben for both commenting on that one.
Oh, yeah.
I always wonder when I post music-related stuff if Bill's going to take it off the site, which I know you won't, Bill, but it's kind of like comic art fans.com worthy type stuff. But I feel like there is such a connection between artwork and music, and even comic art and music.
I love to see when people post music-related art. I love music. So
yeah.
Right, two passions, right? Music, art, combine them. Oh, love it.
Yep.
Love it. I'm always hoping that people would post more. You know, I mean, Matthew Ellis over the years has posted a lot of really cool music-related paintings, and
George did some of that here himself.
Look at that.
Thanks, buddy.
I think it's $20. Come on.
Yeah, I'll send you the Venmo after this.
Yeah.
Well, and part of my reason for picking that Gilbert Shelton piece is selfishly hoping people post more music related art from comic artists and other artists. Hopefully that's okay, Bill.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I love all art, and I know that like we have moderators on CAF now, and they do run into quandaries every now and again, and I always come back and I just say, illustrations are fine on CAF. We got pigeonholed because I called the site comicartfans.com, right? And so the moderators even get stuck in a quandary of every once in a while when they look at artwork that's posted. But I always say, as long as it's original and a collector on our site who's primarily a comic and illustration art collector wants to share it, I don't care if they want to post a Picasso. I mean, this is the place where they share their art, and if that's what they want to share, I'm okay with it, because there's not many people that would do that, but there are a few fine art paintings on CAF, and it's because that's what they're sharing it with the group that they love to share their collections with. So I would never ask anyone to remove anything that fell that out of the norm or not out of the comic art or illustration area.
That's cool. I was hesitant for a long time to post my Magic art, because I collect Magic the Gathering art as well. But recently I was like, there's no better place to display my stuff. Yeah. And so I just loaded everything, and then now my manga stuff I'm loading up. And so I realized, CAF is it's this place to be, man.
Right.
Hey, and so I got to mention really quick, but Carl just posted a cover from Oriental Heroes, which is, I don't know if any of y'all here on the chat here remember those Jade Man Kung Fu comics from the late 80s. There was a Legend of Buddha's Palm, the Blood Sword, right? I mean, there was I think maybe 3 or 4 of them, but dude, that took me back to being a kid. So congrats on picking that up. And Bill, I got my Picasso in the closet. I'll put it up. I didn't realize that was okay.
It's okay, come on, bring it on, everybody.
All right. Why not?
Can I just say also real quick that I just remembered going back to music art. The very first time I got screwed on eBay was over a piece of music art.
Oh no!
No.
You just reminded me of it. I'm like, oh yeah. I thought I was buying this killer. It looked to be penciled, tight, beautiful staple type penciling of the Beastie Boys. Okay, this really famous picture of the Beastie Boys.
Oh man!
And I'm like looking at it. I'm like, God, yeah, that looks like pencil. Yeah, it's got to be real. Why is it only $10? Can't be real for $10. The idiot that I am, I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, I think people just somehow it slipped through the radar, right? And nobody noticed it. Yeah. It looks.
Oh man!
I can see the pencil marks, and then of course it ends for $10. Ships it to me. I pull it out. It's folded. It's a folded poster.
Oh.
And black and white, right? It's black and white, obviously. I emailed the guy right away to rip him a new one, and the guy's like, can you believe it? He had the audacity to still insist. Oh no, what are you talking about? Of course it's original. I'm like, you already ripped me off.
Original poster.
You've already ripped me off. Why would you keep denying it? You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, crazy. But anyways, I just wanted to mention it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm sorry.
Stuff happened.
In copy, I feel like we need to talk. I want to see the
Yeah, that's it, man, Carl. That's awesome, dude.
I think Khalil was talking about this guy here.
Oh, very
The original. And I don't know if you guys know this. Ku Fu Klung, he also did the Street Fighter comic books, and so that's kind of why you see a lot of similarities.
It's great, man.
Design.
Love it.
Yeah, but yeah, these guys are just amazing crew. And yeah, they paint everything. It's man.
Wow.
Very lucky, and you really have to hunt these things down for sure. Because I don't think most people kept the art. Sadly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
All right, on to your second artwork.
Yes, this is a big one. I feel like ties into my topic earlier of character designs. Also, Khalil, I think ties in a little bit of quantity versus quality that I think, maybe 50 years ago or mid 70s when this came out, someone may have looked at this and not seen it as a quality piece. But I think, obviously now we can look at it. We know the significance. But this is, for those that don't know, John Romita, the original Wolverine character design, with a couple notes there that I think may have come from Len Wein. And I think for a long time as a kid, I didn't realize that Herb Trimpe didn't create the character, although I think Romita sees him as a co-creator, although Marvel maybe doesn't see him as a co-creator on paper. But, just love seeing the original designs, the original notes. I love the looseness of it. My understanding is Marvel wanted a Canadian character. I think it's original the Badger. Ruben, you might know more than I do.
I'm just cheering because you said Canadian.
No, okay. But I think you can see they wanted a short, aggressive, and I think originally it was seen specifically as a villain, although he kind of became an anti-hero more than a villain. But Romita, I think the original note was short, aggressive, and claws for nails. And Romita went with the claws on the knuckles instead of coming out of his fingers, changed the design a little bit, and instead of Badger went with Wolverine. Just love the idea that he co-created this character and took the original notes and created something even beyond the original idea.
And this is in the collection, I believe, of Vince Oliva, right?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Yeah. I saw this in person about 20 years ago. He brought it. He brought it to, for some reason. He was. I think he's from Florida. He was visiting New York. I was at a con in New York, and Berkey was set up there, and he was at Berkey's. Him and Berkey, I guess, are kind of buddies. And he had it with him at Berkey's booth. It was so cool to.
And he's got some head sketches, the original head sketches as well. And I love if you visit Vince's CAF page, he tells the story of when he was looking at. I think I don't know if it was with Berkey or with Romita directly. But he was also looking at some Romita Spidey pages and was kind of going back and forth between some published pages versus these designs. And I'm sure he doesn't regret picking up these designs instead.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a key right there. That's cool.
Yeah, now see, that's something you cannot put a price on.
That's right.
And
especially now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that pose was like his first pose in the last panel of Wolverine.
It was, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
All right, so Ruben, you kind of get to send us off with the fourth topic. And here, I'll do this because I've kind of forgotten to do this. I wanted to always center there.
Yeah, all right. So my topic for this evening is essentially collecting comic art, where we're going in the future, I suppose, the future of the market. The reason I wanted to do this, aside from the fact that, Bill, you brought up the suggestion, is because I've actually had this conversation with several friends over the years, So pre-COVID price boost of the last 15 months, it goes back years. And people have always sort of come up to me and said, because again, the prices have been skyrocketing in the last 15 months, yes, and even again more so in the last 4 to 6 months, yes. But for those of you who haven't been in the hobby for that many years, I can tell you the prices have always been steadily climbing forever, far faster than you can kind of keep up with it financially, you know? And so, yeah, a few years ago, you know, some of my friends were like, yeah, I don't know where this hobby's going, you know, like this stuff's getting so expensive, you know, should I continue to collect? Do I keep putting my money into these like expensive pieces? I mean, what's going to happen to this stuff? Like, who's going to want it? So the common thing that I heard from these people was the most common one was, who's going to want this stuff, right? Like, so once we're gone, once we're either, you know, retired from collecting or we're dead, either way, who's going to want it? And the argument that my friends were sort of bringing up all the time was, you know, it's different now because, you know, back when we were younger, you know, the only entertainment was either sports, television, you know, movies, comics, right? And then came video games and now computers, the internet and all that. You have so many more choices, so on and so forth. So that's kind of like the cause for why the brand new comics market, right, the monthlies, why that's basically in the toilet, if you will. And it has never really recovered from the 90s crash, only slightly, you know. And so because that market is on the precipice of eventually petering out because, you know, comics are getting to be $5 and $6 for a floppy pamphlet, right? And because that market seems to have not much of a future in its current form, at least, a lot of art collectors are like, well, so the same thing should happen to artwork, you know? Who's going to want this stuff? And especially given how expensive it is, people these days, they don't care. And, you know, to that, I ultimately was completely opposed to that opinion. And my for several reasons, but my ultimate bottom line reason, what it all comes down to is, like I said, you know what? Take a look at the hobby, and I don't mean just art, but art and comics. And you think about it, it goes back to the late 1930s, right? And in all that time from then till now, you know, we've seen boom and bust multiple times in the comics market. We've seen all sorts of things happen that should have killed the art market. I mean, just in my time in the art market, you know, I've seen a couple of massive stock market crashes, if you will, or at least dives, heavy dives, right, with the tech stock crash and then the housing market issue. And now we had COVID, which everybody, at least for the first month of COVID, everybody I know, including me, the first thought was, oh shit, is this finally the thing that breaks the camel's back, right? Is this the straw that breaks the camel's back? And even that didn't, not only did COVID, you know, a plague, not destroy the art market, it somehow made it better than ever in terms of the strength in it, you know, which is just shocking. So that alone, right? The manner in which this hobby can survive all sorts of negative impact worldwide type events. If those types of things can't kill it, I am of the belief that nothing can kill it. And I don't believe what some of my friends have said over the years that, oh, but the kids these days, you know, they're more interested in video games rather than comics and this and that. So why? And, you know, of course, comic books are a gateway to the artwork, right? Nobody just jumps into the artwork without first being into comics. And that is true. But that whole argument of these kids are you know, they're just not reading comics. So 20 years from now, they're going to be adults that can't possibly have any reason to get into original artwork. But the argument to that is, in one way or another, somehow or other, kids become adults and they get exposed to this stuff, whether it's by movies, whether it's by an older uncle or cousin or whatever. Yeah, the new comic sales may never increase again, and that market may even die at some point, or at least in the form that it's currently in. But the bottom line is, if you think about it, you look at Golden Age comics, right? So 1930s, 1940s. That in and of itself, there are people today who are in their 30s. I know of some myself, personally, who are in their 30s, and they wheel and deal Golden Age comics specifically, right? How? Right? And I ask rhetorically, as if I'm asking these friends of mine who are kind of bringing up this argument. You know, I'm like, one way or another, I don't know why. I don't know why every single 30-some-odd-year-old that's into hardcore, into wheeling and dealing, collecting Golden Age comics, why they do it, or why they got into that specific niche of the market. But the fact remains is that they do it. And so it just goes to show there's always going to be people who love comics, the history of comics, and they will always get into the hobby one way or another. And if we all died in unison 20 years from now, right, some 20-something or 30-something-year-old kids would buy up all the artwork, you know, if it all got flushed through Heritage or Comic Link or however, right? Somebody out there, a bunch of comic book dealers, whoever, somebody would take it all and make a market for it. They would remake a market for it, you know? So I've got zero belief that there's ever any danger that 20 years from now or even sooner, that this market will not continue to be existing and thriving. I know a lot of people are seemingly worried about it, especially because of how high the prices are getting. But will it exist years from now? And I firmly believe, I have zero doubt that it will. I put the chances of it not existing at zero. That's my view. And like I said, there's always people of all ages that are into comics from way before they were born, right? So as long as that, and that has always happened throughout the history of this hobby, that has always happened. So there's no reason to believe that suddenly in our generation, this is going to be the big one. This is the final time, the last hurrah.
Yeah.
The end is nigh, right? Why? and think about it. People really have been saying this really throughout the history of collecting. You know, I mean, if you look back,
well, it's back to that. You always think you're at the apex, but you're not really, Ruben. At the end of the day, I mean, I think we can safely say that the state of our comic art collecting union is strong, and and it really has. You know, we could look at it and say, yeah, people are going to be still collecting original comic art 60 years from now. We know that. I mean, it's just that's the nature of people who have a fascination for original art and storytelling, and so you know.
Yeah, it's an actual art form. So that in and of itself will help it to continue to thrive and survive, and you know.
Well, that's a big one for me, Ruben, is that, you know, what we consider fine art, right, has been around for hundreds of years. And right, exactly. what we consider those masterpieces that hasn't necessarily changed, and the prices on those haven't changed either. And I think you know, we're getting into this stuff where I mean, we're the stuff that we like is getting to that place where I think it's getting a little more respect, right, in terms of that whole world. And I think that can only, I guess, help maybe. Mm-hmm. And this, you know, there's the books themselves, there's the art, but then there's this whole mythology of Spider-Man, and this stuff is it's part of our culture here in a way that it never has been, you know. So, I mean, I think those two things, they're going to be big for this hobby going forward, and we all. You know, these kids that know, you know, I'm a big Black Panther fan. When I see a kid wearing a Black Panther t-shirt, I'm like, you know, where'd that come from? And it came from the films and all that. And hopefully that sticks with them as they get a little older, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, the typical conference call snap.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
You mentioned the movies, but I can't help but think about kids that saw Star Wars for the first time decades ago. You know, I feel like the whole Marvel U, DCU that we're seeing, some of the highest grossing movies, right, of all time, have to be kind of the new Star Wars for these kids. That I think that's going to resonate for decades and decades. to your point, Ruben, that in our generation, we're not going to see like the total decline of comic art.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
No, you know a lot, because what you said was truth.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the reasons why you buy is because you love it. I mean,
Yeah.
Who cares like how much it's worth and whatever? Because after a while, for me early on, like it was a big equation as to like, oh yeah, how much can I sell this for later or whatnot? But like now I'm just kind of, I don't think I ever sell anything. I don't have to.
I want to jump back, if I may take the floor again.
Yeah.
Just I want to reference Harry Mendrick. Hey Harry. Harry says, so much of our hobby is based on nostalgia. With so few youngsters reading comics, at some point there will be a market correction. So this is what I want to say to that. That's not true, Harry, and I'll tell you why. This is the same argument that a lot of my friends that brought this topic up to me over the years have also mentioned. This is what worried them, the fact that, so few youngsters, are reading comics. And yes, a lot of our hobby is based on nostalgia. That is true. But again, think about the example I gave before, Harry, where, again, I know 30-somethings that are wheeling and dealing, and they're in love with Golden Age comics. I mean, where's the nostalgia for that? They weren't even alive for decades until after that stuff came out, So yes, it's nostalgia based, but there's just something about the art form, comics as an art form, the original art itself, that it pulls you in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, people think about nostalgia. See, this is how the issue is how you define nostalgia. And I think most collectors, they kind of make that mistake of thinking that nostalgia only refers to, that stuff I remember reading and looking at when I was a child, right? And that is, by definition, or at least partially by definition, what nostalgia means. But the thing is that you can also be nostalgic for an earlier, simpler time, for instance. Okay, I was not alive during the 1950s, for instance, right? But I have an incredible love for 1950s Americana. The way, the visuals of what America looked in the 1950s, the clothing of the 1950s, the period clothing, the automobiles, just everything about it. I love it. And I, as some people know, as well as collecting comic book art, I've also collected covers, original cover art, painted covers from paperback novels from the 1950s and 60s, because I strictly love the look of it. It just stirs something inside of me when I look at it. And again, I don't have nostalgia for that. I wasn't around, right? Yeah. But you can kind of feel nostalgic, if you will, for that era, a certain time period, perhaps, and that makes you go back and say, "Oh, look at this cool stuff. Hey, I'll dip my toes into that water, and I'll let me buy a piece. Let me buy it, and I'll give it a shot." Next thing you know, you're collecting that stuff. So that's what will.
And I think you're both right, Ruben. I think there are people that collect because they have the opportunity to get it, and I think there are people that collect because of nostalgia as well.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah,
of course. I guess I'm just trying to address the fact that Harry thinks that because he feels nostalgia is the primary factor in collecting art, and since so few young people are actually reading comics, he feels, well, there's going to be that guarantees there to be a market correction. But kids reading or stopping reading comics kind of start, kids. Honestly, I remember back in the 80s, well, let's say by the late 80s, the younger kids were gone. By the late 80s, the youngest people in the comic shop tended to be like 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, already like teenagers, and so that's been happening for decades already, right? Where kids have not been reading comics. It's true, but it's been decades. So
and I'll add, I mean, I think reading comics is a huge key in collecting the art. But I mean, I've done it myself. I know other collectors that have bought pieces and have never read the book. I feel like we're seeing people at these heritage auctions that are buying pieces that aren't comic fans. They just heard it was a good investment and they could get a good return on their money in a short amount of time.
Right.
So I think those are other factors as well.
Yeah,
Maybe outliers.
And I always wonder, what's funny is that how many people does it really take, right? Our community relatively is pretty
That's
small.
a great point.
Right? I mean, I don't know if it takes much.
Yeah, exactly. And Rob Rush says, I think nostalgia doesn't have to be from childhood, which is kind of what I'm trying to say, right? It's not always as specific as, oh, it has to be something that I remember as a child, and therefore I will go out and buy that as an adult,
right.
You know?
To get back to music, right? I love a lot of Motown stuff. That's all before I was born. But you know, there's a lot about that culture and that music that I, absolutely dig.
Yep. Yeah, I think about this piece on Heritage. That was a James Jeans cover from My Chemical Romance, the Black Parade. Out of range, but it was.
I totally missed that.
Yeah. And I do think.
Fun fact, real quick.
So Alfred says here, originals will always be originals. I do think there's an element of that. So there's comics, but there's also the whole one of a kind thing that I think will persist with some people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say also just one last comment to you, Harry, about a correction. Listen, I can't tell the future. I can't see the future, but I can say that, and you've been around a long time, Harry, so you know yourself that, this we've been in the hobby for decades already, you and I don't recall a single correction, if you will, happening so far. And that was in spite of the fact that, as I mentioned, we went through 3 separate worldwide negative impact things that happened. And if anything else, what I learned over the years was that when it comes to these bad things that happen, right? Like ages ago, I used to think when the first time it happened, after the tech stock crash in the early 2000s, I'd only been in the hobby for a few years at that point. And so, of course, my first thought was, oh no, what's this going to do? Oh God, I'm thinking bad stuff, right? And what I learned after that experience and in all the years since is that in times of trouble, collectors are such that while your initial thought may be, oh shit, throw the baby out with the bathwater because I'm going to need money, it actually is not really like that. Collectors tend to have this way of thinking whereby when things go wrong and things are going bad in my life, the one constant that makes me feel like everything is not going to shit is my collectibles. And so I feel like collectors tend to hang on to their stuff even more tightly than they did before things started going seemingly bad. You know what I mean?
Right. I would just mention, because Harry said something about the prices of Golden Age are lower than 90s stuff today. I mean, but you can say that there's cover artwork from the 70s that's lower than 90s artwork today. But I would be willing to bet, and I don't follow Golden Age prices at all, but Golden Age prices today are probably stronger than they were 20 years ago, as they were stronger than 20 years before that. Just because there's fewer collectors of that artwork, it's still valued more today than it was 20 years ago. So the thing is, it's still going up. We're not seeing a curve. I mean, the only time I've ever seen any kind of market fluctuation is when too much of a given artist and title get flooded onto the market at any time. I always, when all that crisis from Infinite Earth artwork popped onto the market, like 10, 12 years ago, prior to that, you couldn't buy a page for under $800, and then all of a sudden, they release about 100 pages over a 4-month period, and now you couldn't sell them for $500, and you had to wait for that influx to happen. Other than that, I've never seen any kind of fluctuation in the hobby and pricing with anything that has had a stable price basis. So,
Bill, I wonder if that's even still the case. I'm thinking like this past summer, Mignola doing those daily sketches, and I think every week was selling 4 on eBay, all for charity. So maybe that's a factor too.
That's a factor, yeah.
But they were selling, thousands to 10,000s for some of the painted pieces, week after week after week. So I'm curious if that's still even a factor.
Yeah, and by the way, just for the second comment that Harry put out, Harry, that's not even apples to apples comparison, anyways. Just to be straight, we don't have time to get into it, unfortunately. But that's not apples to apples. That's apples to oranges. If the Golden Age superhero art, if most of it existed still and was out there available, I can assure you that stuff would be on fire just as much as 70s, 80s, 90s art, is today. A big part of the reason with that whole Golden Age stuff is simply because there's at least superhero related, there's almost none of it in existence left anyways. And so what you have left in the Golden Age is stuff that frankly the vast majority of collectors today don't care about. It's non-superhero stuff, or if it's superhero stuff, it's superheroes that nobody ever cared about, stuff that, from all those hundreds of companies that came and went like the wind, right? They didn't have longevity. So, and then it's romance and Western and all the other genres, right? So you can't really compare that to Marvel and DC superhero art from the last 40, 50 years, 60 years,
Very good.
All right.
Well, we're getting close to 2 hours here, so I want to get Khalil's art in.
We'll be quick here.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll be quicker, man. Yeah.
Thank you, Ruben.
Yes.
And here we go.
Okay, so this is I decided to go with a couple pieces posted just in the last week. This is John Romita Jr., Al Williamson inks from his Daredevil run, a collection of Paul Tobin, I believe. So it was interesting. I was just talking with a fellow collector about John Romita Jr., and he's kind of one of those polarizing names. I feel like some people like him, some don't. And even for me, I see pieces that I do not care for and others that I love. And this is in the former category. I feel like this is that sweet spot in Daredevil where I kind of feel like he found his voice. Got a little, I think, blockier with stuff later, but I love this stuff when I see it pop up on CAF. And I picked this because I think where there's less debate is his storytelling chops. And there are a lot of great examples out there. I think the Man Without Fear is one of my favorite comics ever. You don't even see Daredevil in costume to the last page. But here you've got Ultron, who's just knocked a couple of the Inhumans and Daredevil for a loop down this hill, and you can see Daredevil basically get his together in that panel 4 there, and then rise on up with that determined look. And I also wanted to say that to me, another example of how much of an inker can make a difference, because Al Williamson is known as one of the top guys, and rightly so. I think he just kind of killed it going over JR on this page.
I agree. I love this page.
Yeah, beautifully done. Love how much they put into the backgrounds. I don't know if that was all Williamson or if Romita laid any of that out, but just love all the line work back there too.
All right, this is a newer example. This is from Rob Rush's collection. He just picked up this complete issue of Thanos by Jeff Shaw, and I think Carl, you got a lot of Shaw art you just posted, so I know you'd appreciate this. And this is a whole issue. It's right up Rob's alley in terms of the characters, Thanos, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Silver Surfer. So there's a lot of different crazy stuff in here. But I thought it was just a nice example from this book. Around the action scene storytelling. So on the top, you see the Surfer with Mjolnir, right? So he's zooming on his board while hurling Mjolnir, and knocks over 3 guys in the next panel there. You can see one of the characters go out the window, and then he uses his power cosmic and his board the next, and then kind of standing over everybody kind of triumphantly with Thanos trying to get his bearings, and you can see Mjolnir come back to him at the end. So I just like the flow down the page. I think a nice action example. It makes me want to get a Shaw piece. I don't have one yet. I like the way Surfer is breaking panel there to kind of show the grandness of him, kicking everybody's what here. And I also thought it was kind of neat how he decided to go with this kind of uneven, weird panel layout. and no panel. I guess the borders are thin. It's just basically a line breaking each up, and he did that deliberately on a couple of pages, not the whole book. So I was just curious why he kind of decided to do that here, but just a nice newer example. And I know Rob's happy with it, but I really dug this one out of all the pages in the book, and that's including a lot of the great splashes in there.
Yeah, I like the fact that what you were saying about the fact that there's no gutters.
Yeah, right.
All the gutters are removed, so all the panels are spliced together like that. It's really cool. It's almost like shards of a pane of glass that smashed, kind of like in the that panel at the top there.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Well, if you follow the angle of the lines, it almost dictates speed of the movement, where it feels really fast in those first panel to the second, and then kind of slows down and then picks up again. That's a real cool way to show momentum and pacing.
Yeah, it's very unique.
Yeah, a lot of these pages came out in 2018. It kind of reminds me of a time I was going through a lot of expansion in the business. So I was like really strapped with cash. And so I remember watching these pages go, and I would stare at them, but I just couldn't go in on them. So it kind of brings me back to that time. But yeah, love these pages. I'm very familiar with this page specifically as well.
Right on. Great. Congrats, Rob.
Yeah.
Congrats, Rob. Awesome.
Great picks, Khalil. Thank you. All right, everybody. We have come to the 2-hour mark. 2 hours and 46 seconds to be exact.
Right on.
Yeah. No. This is lots of great topics. A little, some of it a little darker than we've dealt with before, but all relevant. So I hope everybody's taken something away from it. I certainly have. I'll tell you what. I will promise that I will have the CSV export done this week. Well, I should say Maureen will have the CSV export completed this week. I will hopefully make an announcement on Thursday when I send out the weekly email and instruct everybody how to get to it. It will be located within your gallery report, so that it'll make it easy to find. And it won't be a premium only feature. Everyone should have access to the data that they share with CAF. So don't be worried about that. I know a lot of people have said it should be a premium only feature. Now that would never be the case. So
Bill, you're the best. I've been procrastinating and telling my wife that you and Maureen are going to create that feature so I don't have to create my own spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I feel so bad it's taking us this long. But it's more and more relevant, as time goes by, even for me. And I get asked about it so often, I can't even begin to tell you how many emails I get about this one topic. I mean, everybody spent 18 years adding their data here, and I've never given them a way to get it back. So it's time. It's time that happens.
You did give us you dancing in a shark costume. That was pretty cool last week, man.
Yeah,
among others. There.
And a chicken costume too. That was. I'll tell you, because we'll probably never do this. I will tell you why I was dancing in a shark costume and a chicken costume, because we were. I mean, does it matter? Does anybody want to ask for like 1 minute outside?
No, I wanted to know, Bill. Where did you buy all these costumes?
No, I did not. No. My son was in marching band in high school, and every Halloween they had a dress up as a theme. So I've got a Jedi costume behind me now that he had stored away, but he was like one of the left and right sharks because he was a quad player. So they usually had groups of 3, and so he had the shark and the chicken costume from that. But the bit we were going to do, and I bet we're never going to do this, was it was going to be a Star Trek episode. This is just going to it was like a couple different jokes that we were going to play out where the Hulk was running the transporter, but he's also eating lunch, and he would just like toss a chicken bone on on the transporter with me on it. I'm looking like Spock going down, and but when I get down on the planet, I would have my my blue shirt on, but I would be a chicken, and or he's eating shrimp or something, and he tosses it over because it's Hulk. He's stupid, and he's not stupid. He's just not. He's careless, and so that was going to be But then we were like. We've just moved on to other things. We've done Bill again and everything. But so when Berkey wasn't in the room and I had the costume on, I filmed myself dancing with no one there. So that's how those came to be.
So, you felt compelled. Yes.
I did. Yeah. I did. And the Billigan dance that everybody laughs at was done the exact same way. Mike was off getting something downstairs, and I was just. Yeah. So there you go.
It's the face, man. It's the face.
I know. Yes. But you're going to get those nowhere else but Dueling Dealers. So, so anyways, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate the conversations tonight. Carl, welcome to the fraternity. I get to do that first before Dino would have done it because I know he would have very soon. He probably already did, I think. No, he did before the thing started. Darn it. Dino beat me to it again. But thank you all, and thank you everybody for tuning in this evening. It was a great, lots of great topics. I assure you we will have 4 other fantastic topics to talk about next week, and we'll probably switch a few of these gentlemen out, and we'll look forward to talking with you again next week.